I am Morgan Nagler, and you're watching Consequence.
We have to talk about how insane of a journey you've had to your quote-unquote solo debut album. You know, like it's the debut, but it doesn't. It in a way it feels like it, but in a different way it doesn't. Like from child actor to band leader to songwriter, back to solo performer. Like, what was that journey like, and how did you end up back here?
It started when I was 5 years old. No, it started when I was born. Yes, it's kind of been sort of a journey back to self, which I feel like is everybody's journey in life. You kind of start to grow up and you get out there and you're trying all these different things, and then kind of realize at some point that the real thing you're trying to get to is back to your actual truest version of yourself. I feel like my life has been extremely interesting. It's given me a lot to think about, a lot to write about. As they say, it's all about the journey. So yes, it feels strange to say it is a debut. I mean, but it is in some ways. It is my first kind of solo thing under my own name, and it does feel like that to me. I feel the most myself in this recording. But yes, there was a lot of stuff going on in between there. It's all a part of it. It all informs each other, and I know that I wouldn't be here without that whole circular experience that will continue to spiral. There's actually one of the lyrics in a song called Dad's on Acid, which as I sing it, I always resonate with it again, is you finally find your center in the spiral. So you're spiraling out, you're doing, you're freaking out, but eventually you get down to the core of the matter, which is where we're all trying to get.
You already kind of gotten to my next question, which was the difference between, when you're in the studio writing with other people or writing for other people versus, writing for yourself. I'm curious, like, just for you personally, like what different mindsets you're in, if there's any sort of difference in approach. Of course, if there's anything you've taken from those studio experiences with the other artists and brought it into, this album. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, they definitely inform each other, but my approach usually is very different. When I'm by myself, I usually just pick up the guitar and just see what comes out. And usually it is everything at once. You're kind of messing around, but it's words and melodies and chords. If it doesn't start that way when I'm alone, I'll be driving and I'll hear, a melody with some words, and then I'll pick up the guitar. But when you're collaborating, you need to communicate. You need to understand what you're talking about because you're working with other people. So you can kind of start that way, which we do sometimes in the room, where you're just kind of not making too much sense or knowing what you're talking about, and then the idea forms and the concept forms. But you really need to discuss it when you're collaborating, and therefore there's clear intention to the song and what it's about. Whereas when I'm by myself, I do kind of just let it flow through as much as I can. My goal is to kind of bypass my brain, because I feel like the brain works as a filter to what's in your actual unconscious and in your soul that just kind of wants to come out. You can't fully do that, but I do try my best to not analyze what I'm saying until later. And then I go back and then you edit it and you make it make sense if it doesn't, or sometimes it's just cool how it is. And you can kind of see in retrospect where you were coming from, which is very interesting to me.
Being in the studio with people, did you ever have a moment where you have that voice in the back of your head that's like, oh, you should keep this for yourself, or yeah. If, oh, I should bank this, this is a really good idea?
Yes, that happens, and often it's because it feels so specific, and you don't know for sure that somebody else might relate to it in the way that you're relating to it. I used to go into every session with several kind of formed ideas or concepts just in my back pocket type of thing. But what I've kind of realized in doing it more is that really the best usage of energy and space and time is seeing what comes out of the actual mix of energy that's in the room. Even though I still, will have kind of concepts or ideas, for the most part, I try and just be present and pull from what's happening in the room that day, or, something the artist might be talking about their life. And I'm like, oh, that that sentence you just said, or that word, like, that's a cool concept.
Are there any songs that you've worked on like that you could see yourself like throwing on LP2, LP3, maybe breaking out at a show?
Yeah, I mean, I could see, nothing's like jumping into my mind, but I could definitely see that. There's definitely a bunch of songs that I really love and could totally see cutting myself. Grassoline I thought, oh, this is a great idea. This should be for like Willie Nelson or something. And I called Matty Diaz and I was like, let's write this, whatever. Obviously, Willie Nelson did not cut the song, but that's kind of an example of like, well, I like this song and I
Yeah.
wrote it. So I'm just gonna put it on my record.
I'm just so curious about the actual recording experience of it. You have so many different people touching this that have all their own different kinds of accolades and like bringing their own styles and experiences into this record. And I don't know. To me, it's just like a cool poetry of like the inverse of kind of what you spent the last however many years doing. Of like that was kind
Yeah.
of you, and now you're bringing in a lot of these people that you did that for that are kind of reversing the roles.
There is a really nice sense of community in that way. And growing up and kind of coming up in the DIY kind of indie rock world, there definitely was a sense of community, but this does feel different now. It's probably just because of years lived. But I think also from kind of being involved in more aspects, like you're saying, like, yeah, doing these sessions and doing co-writing and all this. And also just kind of embracing collaboration. Because honestly, coming up, it's called DIY. It's do it yourself. Don't collaborate is the message there. To the point where it's, detrimental. Like I used to call it the puke method, where you just the song comes out and that's the song, and who am I to change? I don't like this part, but I'm not going to change it because that's just the song. That's how it came out. And actually, when I first started writing with Gillian Welsh and David Rawlings, which was my first co-writing experience, and they both are, extremely schooled. They went to Berkeley and they're, literally cream of the crop songwriters. And they're like, you can change that part. If you don't like it, you craft it, you edit it. And so obviously I've embraced that a lot more. And that's a big part of co-writing, but it of course bleeds into what I'm doing on my own as well. And yeah, to get back to your actual question about the recording process, I worked with Kyle Thomas of King Tuf as the producer, who's incredible. And I had yet to open up my personal songs to collaboration, kind of just because of how I came up. But now I've been doing it for so long, and I trust him and I trust his taste. For the most part, I came in with versions of songs that were quote unquote finished, but I said, I'm open. Like, let's crack it open. Do you have any ideas? Change the chords, whatever. For example, on Orange Wine, it was kind of a version of the song. And he said, well, what if we write like 5 more choruses? And that's how the song now ends. And we wrote those all together. We started recording at Pierre DeRieder's studio called 64 Sound, which is in Highland Park. He is the bass and guitar player, and Rilo Kiley, and I've known him since I was about 20 years old, or younger. I think I was actually 17 when I met him. So we went in there with Josh Adams on drums and Gabe Knoll on bass, who are both incredible players, and Kyle was playing electric guitar, and kind of got the basics down. And we did that in about 3 days, just kind of knocked out all the basics, just went for it. And then we continued to do the overdubs at Kyle's home studio at the time, which was called the Log Mansion. Oh, yeah, it's funny. In Hammer and Nail, which is my favorite song on the record, there's a part that says, dreaming of a log cabin building itself. And I'm in the Log Mansion, so I'm like, should it be a Log Mansion? And Kyle was like, no. I digress. Okay, so overdubs at Kyle's. And yeah, for example, Meg of Hand Habits at the time was living below Kyle. So they kind of just came upstairs like, what's going on over here? And then absolutely crushed it. They were saying in the moment that they felt like they were in a hip hop session because we were all just like really hyped up. It was extremely fun doing all the overdubs and doing the basic tracks as well. Yeah, and just kind of bringing in different people for what felt, appropriate.
one of the other songs you brought up, Grassoline, another personal favorite on the record of mine. I would love, it's funny that you bring up writing it for maybe Willie Nelson or like something like that, because I was totally going to ask you about like, how this song fits into kind of like stoner culture almost. Like there's this great history of like kind of country and alt country with, weed, and then there's obviously like the hip hop aspect. Like, where is this song in the pantheon of stoner anthems?
I think that, both of those, like, I've always been into hip hop starting in high school and also country music. So it is like one of the intersections between the two. And I think of it kind of like, John Prine's Illegal Smile, and
a classic. Yeah.
It feels joyful. There was one moment actually recording with Kyle when he was like, I'm really good at making fun songs. And I was like, well, I apologize, but this one is really fun. And it is fun. And it, even though when you really kind of like dive in, which I noticed once we posted it, there are some like heavier concepts, even though they're spoken of in light. I know Jesus ain't gonna save me.
Yeah.
Be crazy. But yes, it literally was born. I just was like leaving my house to go for a hike. And I was like, you know what? I need some Grassoline. And I just went back home really quick. And then instantly I was like, Grassoline, did I just make up a word? Like, have to write that song. And it kind of was floating around in my head on the hike. But what I like about it, and to your point of just kind of how we cope with reality, it's a literal song about grass, but also it's a metaphor. It's like whatever you can do, to change your perspective or bring you a little bit of joy or put you in a place where you're appreciating your surroundings more. Great. Let's do that. You know what I mean? Because we do have a choice every day of how we're going to experience things. And obviously there's many events that take place that are outside of our control, but how we let them affect us is up to us. And so there are tools that we can use. That's one of them. And there are many others.
One of the last things I wanted to bring up too, and we've touched on this idea a little bit. How are you feeling about getting back out on the road? How are you feeling about, playing these songs that are, obviously a lot more personal and you than you've done in a while? Like, what are the emotions, when it comes to the live performance?
I'm excited. And, I have done, I started off touring again last year on the Kim Deal tour, and I had Kyle and one of my really good friends, Arinda Fink, with me playing. And then the next one was Rilo Kiley, and I had just Arinda with me. And then I did the Maddie one by myself. And now I'm going to do so it's kind of, again, this coming back to self and just embracing what it is. You know what I mean? It's just the songs really are the thing. And to me, the whole point of sharing music is just kind of like feeling connected to the ether and in connecting to other people in this time of deep isolation, basically. Whereas, maybe historically you and I would be in a coffee shop right now, but we're just on this robot machine. Yeah, I just think connecting to people and relating to each other is so important. And so playing shows is just a fantastic way to kind of get to that place quickly and make a connection with strangers, which I think is just, on such a macro scale, this is what we need. We need to have empathy. And so this is just kind of like the micro way that you can have, do something basically to try and make a shift for the better.